Ladies and sinners, welcome to another Tuesday evening edition of the Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. We're back at it again, folks. Usually it's every Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We had to start a little bit later because of my current football schedule and everything that's going on. It's nice to be on. It'll be a short show, but it will be efficient. I promise you guys that much. I'm Cale Henderson. I'm the host of the Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. You guys can get at us on our Twitter forums at SinCity_IESR, at Cale_Henderson's my personal. We talk all things Raiders, all things Vegas sports, and on my personal, all things, like anything, even complain about video games. Because it is what it is. It's a pastime or it's a hobby, and I want it to be fun, but sometimes it isn't. You guys can catch the show if you don't hear the live. You guys can catch the show anytime you want on the Spreaker Podcast Player, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Castbox, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, and Giosvan. I think that's how you pronounce that. I'm not quite certain. It's spelled J-I-O capital S A-A-V-N. Giosvan? I don't know. I could be wrong. I probably am. That's okay. You know what I'm not wrong about? The Lady Aces. What I tell you guys last week, I said the Lady Aces were going to storm through this first round of the playoffs. Like it wasn't going to be an issue. I wasn't worried about it. I thought it'd be an easy game. Truthfully. I thought the Lady Aces would have an easy round. And I was proven right, man. I straight up. Lady Aces killed it. They swept Chicago Sky. Man, Adam, by the way, shout out to Adam Karnick. First off, I love your shows. I love how brutally honest you are. But I also want to give you props, man, because you are a diehard. You shouldn't have to be, but you are. And it is crazy how supportive you are of your Chicago teams. Like, none of them win. None of them. Shout out to you, Adam Karnick. Thank you so much for being a good teammate as well. Sorry about your Chicago sports right now. Sorry about all the crap Justin Fields is getting. I think Matt AMRPHIS is a pain in the ass, and I don't think he's quite adjusting to his new head coaching position as of right now. And you guys could be hiring a new one if you guys have another first overall pick, which it's not out of the question right now. It really isn't. But a team that will not have the first overall pick in their respective league would be the Lady Aces, who beat the Chicago Sky, swept them 2-0 in the first round, 87-59 in the first meeting, 92-70 in the second meeting, and it wasn't even close. Aja Wilson scored 38 points in Game 2. That is unbelievable. 16 rebounds. Lady was playing out of her mind. She said, I want to rest the rest of the week. I just don't want to play the rest of the week is what she said. And I believe her. She kicked ass and take names, man. Statistics are holding steady. I mean, you got Wilson averaging 26 points a game this year. Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray, both above 14.5 points per game. So they've been absolutely killing it. Kelsey Plume has done... So her points per game average has definitely dropped, but the one thing that's escalated is the number of assists she has. That number's changed by 2 or 3 assists per game since about a month and a half ago, and I think it's leading to more points. I mean, you're seeing more domination. Yes, it is great to see Kelsey Plume on the top of our scoring list from time to time, but that's not what she's here for. She's a point guard. Let her cook, man. Let her shove it out to people. Team leaders, right now, the team leader with rebounds is 12.5 rebounds per game, and we're looking at Kay Stokes. Kay Stokes. And that's just for the postseason this far, by the way. But killer, man. Absolutely killer. Aja Wilson's averaging 12 rebounds. So get this. Kaya Stokes, Aja Wilson, both averaging more than 12 rebounds a game. Aja Wilson's at 12. Kaya Stokes is at 12.5. Aja Wilson, no wonder she's got points because you got teammates serving up the boards, man. Like, we're talking about 24 rebounds per game. 24 rebounds per game is what the Lady Aces are getting to get that ball back and get another chance to score on a consistent basis. That's really impressive. It's hard to combine those statistics, and it's no wonder the Lady Aces swept the first round. Chicago Sky is a good team. They were a good team last year too. They just ran into probably one of the best teams the WNBA's ever seen. And look, man, I've said from the very beginning, it is repeat or bust because this team is that talented with what they have to offer. And no state income tax, so they can attract more talent this way. It's quite obvious. You lose a player to the LA Sparks. I think it was your third best player last year, and all of a sudden, I mean, you're still killing it. You're still winning just as many games, if not more, than last year. I don't know. The Lady Aces are just killing it. They're killing it, and they're waiting. They're waiting for their next opponent. We'll find out by the end of the week who that will be. As a matter of fact, in the coming couple days, we'll find out who the Lady Aces will be playing in the second round. But congratulations to the Lady Aces for their sweep over the Chicago Sky. Transitioning over to a team that could be picking number one. Just kidding. It won't happen. I don't think they'll. I don't think they'll lose enough games for that to happen. But week two Raiders recap. Man. Um. Oof. What do we have to say about the Raiders? It's really tough. Sometimes it's tough being a Raiders fan. It really is. I'm trying to be positive as I can be. But they do everything. They do anything and everything they can to make it difficult. I mean, that's just a fact. And I, I, I don't think they deserve the support they get with the way that they've played over the last 2 decades. You guys know that I've been holding Mark Davis 100% accountable for the downfalls or the shortcomings of this football roster or this team the last decade at least. I've done nothing but absolutely hold his feet to the fire the last few years. Something's got to change. Something's got to change. A coaching change, I don't know if that's going to do it. Listen, with all the crap I give Josh McDaniels, the guys like so for example, the very first drive of the game against the Bills, this last weekend's game was flawless. Like I can't stress to you guys how much hope they gave me in that first drive because it was just I think there was one negative play. Otherwise, they just absolutely marched down the field. I thought it was very impressive. I was really extremely excited. It all went downhill from there. The Bills made adjustments. The Raiders coaching staff didn't. That's something we talked about last year. I think we're seeing the same things. I really do. I think we're seeing the same things we saw last year. Yes, you're not seeing fourth quarter leads blown. I get that. We've had 2 games. We haven't had the opportunity to see that realistically. But I think one of the common themes we talked about last year was this Raiders coaching staff just seems to get out coached. In the games they lose, like they get out coached, and it's not like by I don't know, it's not by marginal, right? It's not something that's small, barely noticeable. I mean, it's highly noticeable. When the Raiders lose like this, yes, the player's execution stinks. But you have to start wondering, dude, why put it like this? Why does it take Josh McDaniels so long to do play action? Why do you draft a tight end in the second round and he's only caught the ball twice? When the tight end is probably one of the main focal points in this offense. Yes, you have Devontae Adams on the team. I get it. Why is Hunter Renfro, which was 2 years ago an All-Pro slot, was getting nothing but respect from like the likes of Derwin James and others? You know, there's that infamous clip with Ryan Clark, um, where Ryan Clark called him an encyclopedia salesman, and Derwin James goes, "That ain't no encyclopedia salesman." Turn on the film. Like Hunter Renfro is absolutely wasted on this roster right now because he can't improv like he had the freedom to do under Gruden. Like that's just not Josh McDaniels' thing. Josh McDaniels is just too smart for everybody. That's what it comes down to. I fully believe that. I think Josh McDaniels thinks he's just smarter than everybody else. Uh, Taryn, thank you for joining the show. As always, like I said, man, you're a great teammate. Larry B, what's up, my brother? 1-1, I'll take it. Yeah, I mean, we'll take it, 100%. The problem is we have a tough schedule. Like if we were going to take a game that needed to happen there, like you need to have a great start. I think they can beat the Steelers. I don't think the Steelers are that good of a team. Their defense is elite. So I do want to backtrack a little bit. That Steelers defense is absolutely elite, and they have better pass rushers on their team than the Bills do. And the Raiders O-line was absolutely served up an ass whooping last week. But you're a listener, Larry B, because you don't just run the show. You listen to every one of my shows, and you critique my shows fairly. And one of the things I know you've heard me say is, one, our head coach stinks. He shouldn't be a head coach. He should stay offensive coordinator. It's fine. Two, they've mismanaged this roster for 2 decades, not just the last 2 years. Three, the offensive line is overrated. I've said this for over a year. This offensive line is, even though they had a top 10 grade last year from PFF, it was shadowed. It was absolutely hidden behind a running back that was an absolute monster last year. And they showed the statistic during the Bills game. Josh Jacobs had over 1,350 yards after contact last year. So let's get this straight. 2,000 yards total. 1,600 plus of them were rushing yards. He held the rushing title last year. 1,350 of them were after contact last year. And his average depth of contact wasn't even half a yard, dude. What that tells me is that there just really wasn't holes. The guy was patient and he created yards after first hit. Derek Carr at one point of the season last year was getting pressured on 48% of the dropback snaps. That's not a good offensive line. That's an overrated offensive line. And it makes me wonder how is PFF grading these guys? Because if you are just a basic football knowledge, I think you look at this offensive line, you know it's struggling. It's not doing a very good job. There were no lanes for anybody to run yet the other day. None. The offensive line did absolutely nothing. They had their worst game in the Josh McDaniels era. Worst game. Just a lot of things that I look at. I'm like, dude, these guys are just getting out coached. These players are. Listen, this roster is not good enough to play against elite teams in the AFC. I get that. Like, I expect the Raiders to lose to the Bills. I expect them to lose to the Chiefs. I expect them to probably lose to the Chargers. I can take those 3 teams right there and think the Raiders are likely going to lose more games than they likely will win. We're about to see the Chiefs twice. We're about to see the Chargers twice. Both of those teams, even though the Chargers are struggling, have better rosters. I can't say better coaches. I think Brandon Staley is kind of a joke right now, and I'd be shocked if he still has a job by the end of the year at this rate. Even if they make playoffs, I don't know. It just looks funky. Taryn kind of hit that on the head in the SoCal sports. If there's a team that's underachieved more, I don't know if you can name them. Chargers are struggling. They have all the talent in the world, and they're struggling. So Raiders recap. What is their grade against the Bills? Obviously, I'm giving them like maybe a D minus. The first drive alone should have been an A, but everything went downhill from there. There were 4 turnovers. Jimmy Garoppolo was responsible for 2 of them with 2 sacks. With 2 interceptions. He wasn't sacked at all last game, but dude, the pressures were unreal. The offensive line struggled tremendously. Here's a statistic that was absolutely crazy to me. Josh Jacobs had, let's take a look here, rushing yards. Josh Jacobs had 9 carries for -2 yards. 5 catches for 51 yards. So it seemed as though the running back screen game or running backs out of the backfield were a theme. It's almost like the Bills said, hey, you're not going to beat us deep with Davante Adams. Because Davante Adams' the lone score of the Raiders, was a quick screenplay. It was like a now screenplay. And Davante did a great job of just taking an inside step, juking the DB, the first DB or first threat, the most dangerous man out of his jock, and then just race into the end zone with a stiff arm to get him the rest of the way in. It was just excellent route running and a quick play call. The rest of it, man, the rest of the game was horrible. The defense just couldn't get off the field. Um, Zamir White had 4 carries for 22 yards. He was one of the lone players that was getting positive yardage. Problem is he lost the fumble. But is that his fault? Okay, no. I take it back. Yes, it's his fault. Do I blame him completely? No. The guy had like 15 carries last year. He's a third round pick out of Georgia, and he had 15 carries last year. Dude had 4. I think he's got 4 on the year right now. I don't know what this coaching staff is doing. Um, I get that Patrick Graham is getting a lot of heat. His defensive roster is probably one of the worst in the league. Other than Max Crosby, there really isn't a lot of bright spots right now. I'll take it back. Nate Hobbs he's a future All Pro. He had a rough game last week, but he's a future All Pro if they use him right. Trayvon Morig was an excellent safety with ton of promise in that Gus Bradley system. Moving into this Patrick Graham defense has really hurt his development. Like he's just struggling out there. This too high safety, whatever they're trying to do, man under, it's just not working for him. And that's one of the things I really don't appreciate about this staff. They're not calling to the strengths of their players. They're they're just doing what they know that their scheme can do, and they're not making adjustments. It's like they're so arrogant. Like they honestly think in their mind, we're just better coaches. We're smarter. We can run our scheme and beat anybody. That is 100% obviously not the case. 6-11 says otherwise. 1-1 right now says otherwise. And your only win is against a horrible Broncos team that blew a 21-3 lead. I'm a Raiders fan and I'm suffering, but I can't be suffering as bad as the Broncos fans right now. I just don't know how they're doing it. I don't know how they show up with a smile on their face every day. It's crazy to me. But yeah, I just think I'd give the Raiders maybe a D minus. Um, First drive was beautiful, unbelievable. It was flawless. After that, no adjustments. Players played poorly. They weren't executing. The offensive line had the worst game. The defense is still the defense. They're crap. They're not very good. And it kind of comes down to this. I'll put it like this. I am so sick and tired of reading comments about our former quarterback on Raiders Twitter. He has nothing to do with this team anymore. Nothing. We have way more to focus on right now with the current quarterback. He's turnover prone right now. 3 interceptions on the year already. He's 3-3. Guy has roughly 385, 390 yards passing on the season. I just overall think he's struggling. His QBR is 57.3. He's 15th in the league. This guy was supposed to come in and just know the offense. He's struggling. His completion percentage is pretty good at 66.7. That was last game. Apologies. Um, right now, his completion percentage is actually 72%, which is pretty impressive. But he's at 385 yards. He's got 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. His longest pass completion right now is 23. 23 yards. I don't understand the people that say that this dude is an upgrade. Does he know the system better? Yes. Is he more talented than our former cornerback? Absolutely not. No. And guess what? Our former quarterback, he's not thinking about the Raiders and their struggles right now. He's 2-0 and he has a top 10 defense. He doesn't care. He hasn't even played particularly well. Like you could tell he looks out of sorts and he's still trying to figure things out and he's still not worried about anything the Raiders are doing because his team is winning. And they're doing it against top defenses. They really are. With a top defense. The Saints defense is unreal. I have no problem saying it. I think they're beasts. wish the Raiders would really follow suit. I wish they'd build a tough defense. They just can't seem to get out of their own way. And they have an offensive head coach. So I don't think that's going to happen. And this guy is smarter than everybody in the league. So what are we going to do? I think I got Patty that's trying to get involved. Hopefully she gets in here pretty soon. Patty is the host of the Buffalo show. Buffalo had a great game. Buffalo's an excellent football team. I have nothing bad to say about Buffalo. I had a bad feeling in my stomach going into this week. Straight up. Had a horrible feeling in my stomach going into this week. I'm sitting here thinking, dude, if there was a team that we did not want to play coming off a loss, it was the Buffalo Bills. The last thing I wanted to do was for the Raiders to go into Florham Park, New Jersey. Not New Jersey, sorry. Orchard Park. Apologies. New York. The last thing the last thing I wanted the Raiders to do is go into that stadium, a road game, almost 2,000 miles away, to play the second game of the season. I mean, that was a total get-right game for the Bills. They just outplayed and outcoached the Raiders by a mile, by 2 miles. I mean, look at that. 38-10, that's 4 scores. So Patty's got a great team over there. I'm excited for her because she's a big Bills fan. She was in attendance. That had to be fun to watch, especially seeing, Josh Allen didn't throw for 300 plus yards, but man, he was efficient. He threw for 3 touchdowns, did a great job. The defense was unreal. The defensive line really came to life, and I still think the Bills were missing a couple pass rushers, like because of injuries. So that team's just going to get better. That was just the worst case scenario for the Raiders last week. So they're horrible. On to the Steelers, right? I don't have a warm fuzzy in my stomach, man. I know it's in Raiderville. By the way, I was looking at tickets. They're showing like $500 per ticket. That is an absolute travesty for an underperforming franchise, or for the underperforming franchise that the Raiders have been over the last 20 years. My lord. Mark Davis is getting paid, and he shouldn't be. It's ridiculous. But $500 a ticket. I'll probably never be able to see a Raiders game until those prices go down, because I'm not going to spend $500 a ticket. Me and the significant other, no, we're not going to spend a mortgage payment to buy tickets for a game where we don't even know if the team's going to be good that day or not. It's rough. I know it makes me sound like a fair weather fan, but I'm just trying to be smart here. So they played the Steelers. The Steelers' offense is not very good. They played really well again. Honestly, I think they played efficiently. And Najee Harris is a beast, but I think they played efficiently. George Pickens, I had him on my bench in my fantasy. By the way, congrats to Mike Pat. You beat me this week in fantasy. I'm 1-1 right now in the season. For you folks that may be curious about my fantasy season thus far, 1-1. Scored over 100 points in each one of them, so I haven't been absolutely dominated. It was actually really close between Mike and I during that Monday Night Football game until Olave started getting those long balls, and then I was like, oh, I'm screwed. And for whatever reason, um, you have one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL when it comes to throwing fades. They just wouldn't throw it to Michael Thomas on a fade at all. Didn't make any sense. You had multiple chances, multiple field goals scored. That's just, it is what it is. It's the Saints. Back to the Raiders. If the Raiders win, it's close. But unfortunately, it feels like the Raiders have to hold teams under 20 points to win games. Otherwise, they don't have a shot because this offense is just not going right now. And I think the Steelers' front is better than the Bills' front. Their defensive front, I should say. Their defensive front is better than the Bills' defensive front. And I would stand on that because they're flying to the ball, man. TJ Watt is nuts. I saw some statistic that he's got like 89 and a half sacks already in his career. Like, are you kidding me? The guy's only played like 6 years. Dude. Absolute beast. And we got to block that guy. Now, granted, Colton Miller right now is ranked the 5th best tackle in the league. He's allowed 1 pressure in 2 games. So I'm really confident there. The rest of the O-line, trash. The Raiders really got to think about that. They really got to think about that. because it's not looking good. But if I had to have a prediction for this week, Raiders are at home. I don't know. Maybe 24-17, 24-21 Raiders. I could still easily see the Raiders losing to the Steelers. And I seen some writing, from SI Sports and stuff like that saying that this is Josh McDaniels' most important game as the Raiders head coach. I kind of buy that. I think Mark Davis is looking at this and saying, hey man, you're supposed to be this genius I'm paying $8+ million a year, because he wasn't going to leave the Patriots for anything less than 8 per. And the Steelers are a rival. They're a long-time rival, like a franchise long-time rival. Like if Mark Davis could pick out 2 opponents to beat every year, it would 100% be the Chiefs and the Steelers. So I think if the Raiders lose to the Steelers, and they continue to lose in the fashion they've been losing, with turnovers and silly mistakes and an unreal amount of penalties, I think Mark Davis is really going to be thinking about, do I need to make a change in the offseason? A lot of season left. But I've been saying for a while, I'd be shocked if Josh McDaniels is back. And I'd be shocked if they have a winning season. I really would, with the way things have been looking thus far. Hopefully Jimmy G picks it up. Hopefully this team really starts to hit on all cylinders. But there really isn't an easy part of the schedule. The schedule is kind of brutal. We'll see what this Raiders team is about, man. We'll see what they are. This is the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. You guys can get at us every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you can also get at us on our Twitter pages, SinCity_IESR, at Cale_Henderson's my personal. Check us out on numerous podcasts, Spreaker Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, to name the popular ones. You guys can review this show. It's only a half hour, but it was efficient. I feel like it got to the point. As always, folks, I'm your host, Cale Henderson. Thank you for tuning into the Sin City Sports Show. Love, peace, and hair grease.